This is fresh off the bootleg merch lot at the BJCC. You got Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock. I don't know if you could hear that, but
Yeah.
this the finest bootleg merch out there. I had to give it up for Grammy-winning Dave Chappelle. I think he's like 3 or 4 years in a row with like best comedy album from
Yeah,
the
it's
Grammys.
crazy.
So
It's
I had
crazy.
to shout out the homie.
Yeah, we'll obviously we'll inevitably get into those talks. We got to talk about the Grammys a little bit too. I don't know if you noticed. So I have Kittis behind me, cat instead of a dog this time, and then if you can see, there's a pillow back there with her face on it, and it says "always watching, always judging." And I think it's perfect that she's laying right next to it to where you can see it. So anybody watching from home will be able to see the very nice
judgment.
portrait of Kittis. Yeah, exactly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's Totally Biased Music. It's Blake and Anthony. Today we are reviewing Michael by Killer Mike. The Grammys just happened. He picked up a number of awards there, which we will get into. Apple Music intro. Quote, I needed my audience to see that Killer Mike is something that this 9-year-old kid created to be fierce and badass to protect him from any ill. The artist-born Michael Render tells Apple Music Zane Lowe, quote, this is my come home moment musically. It is gospel, it is soul, it is funk, it is hip-hop. And from a moral standpoint, I was taught morality through the Black Southern Christian Church, which gave us the civil rights movement, the abolitionist movement, which gave us some of the most beautiful music ever. And I feel like I'm honoring that, and I finally figured out my place. So it goes on to talk more about it, but I thought that was really cool. I love Zane Lowe. I need to watch that interview if I can find it.
I've never heard Zane Lowe.
So Zane has done a number of interviews for Apple Music. He's done a handful of Kanye. He did one with Jay-Z, one with Eminem when Marshmello's LP2 was coming out. He's done a Cudi one, and he's a great interviewer, man. You can tell he's really into the music. He's really passionate about it. He's done one with Rick Rubin too, actually, that you would probably really like. But yeah, he's super interesting. But so this was my I think I listened to Michael when it first came out, but this was my first re-listen. But what did you think upon initial listening of it?
Well, I've not listened to Killer Mike's solo material, but I've been able to see him with Run the Jewels, definitely once in Miami and potentially twice somewhere else just on the road. But I've been a huge fan of Killer Mike just from interviews. I've listened to him on podcasts. Really, Joe Rogan Experience really is the main one. But I think he's such an amazing like human being in general. But this album was my first time listening to it was through this podcast, and to see the accolades that he started to kind of rack up here in the past few days really amplified the listening experience for me, because now I got to listen to it in a way of like, this album is definitely appreciated by the masses, but now how does it translate to me in my listening experience? So I had a really good time. I listened to it twice in the past 2 days, and I have to say my rating changed after the second listen, but don't read too into it. You'll start to kind of get a feel as we talk more about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, I listen to a ton of Run the Jewels, and there's a lot of Run the Jewels that I really like. There's some of it that I'm not like a huge fan of, but overall, like, I love the concept of it. I love LP. The production on those albums is great, and Killer Mike is just phenomenal. And I'm kind of with you. Like, I listened to the album a few times, and I think it grew on me as I listened to it more. And there's some really, really good songs here that we'll get into. I love political music. I like music that makes a political statement. I will say this: a friend of mine texted me, and we were talking about this, and apparently he let me know, which I didn't know this, that people seem to believe that Killer Mike is a right-wing rapper and he's a right-wing person. To anyone that thinks that, I understand that there are people that are incapable of listening to music with a critical mindset and understanding what the fuck they're listening to. Which is why so many artists are popular right now. But Killer Mike is not a right-wing artist. He's not a conservative. He's a fucking anarchist, and he always has been. And anarchy is not a right-wing ideology in my mind. But he's about the empowerment of himself and Americans, and he's very anti-politician. And just because that is anti-right-wing and left-wing politicians does not make him a right-wing artist. So I feel the need to say that to people because he told me that, and that shit really pissed me the fuck off. So I just want to make that statement that he is not a conservative rapper. So, but it was great to listen to this, man. There's a lot about it that I really like, and there's a lot of that typical Killer Mike political statements to it, and I love that about him. I love that he stands on his ground and believes what he believes, and I think he deserved these awards, and I'm glad that he's finally getting shown the light. So it's been
Yeah,
nice.
I think I mean, just from the content that I've been able to digest from him has always been fuck the system. As
Yeah,
far as like he's a product of the system, and I think that this or a product of like growing up in rural South America, South part of the U.S. I mean, it's a whole different experience, and I think that's such a cool angle that he takes on this album is like you find out everything you need to know about Killer Mike from this album. At least like that's what I've come to find. It's like you find out what his family life was like, his youth, what that was like, just where he grew up, and his influences. I mean, he shout his the first track is he's just shouting out all these injustices that have been happening throughout time, and I think that bringing awareness to something as powerful as that right off the bat, it speaks volumes to what kind of human he is.
yeah.
Yeah, he's a powerful guy, and I think that people are starting. I find that really interesting. Someone had that take on him, but to each their own. But still, I would have to highly disagree as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody posted a clip, like an audio clip from the first song from Down by Law, and it was like a 45-second clip, and he's rapping his fucking ass off. And somebody like tweeted it and was like, "This one album of the year over Utopia, okay." And somebody quote tweeted was like, "Bro, you picked like one of the hardest parts of the album. Like you're proving your
Yeah,
point,
right,
basically.
right.
Like you're proving the opposite of your point." Like,
Yeah, yeah, I
but with
get it.
that being said, let's get into top songs. What do you got for your top three?
So, well, first off, I think that there are so many great points in this album. So, like something that I'm starting to do just in my own notes is I'm looking up the vinyl release for the album, and I want to section it off in my own notations, so that way I can kind of see how the artist is wanting to put out this piece really.
Yeah.
So there's four sides to or there are four sides to the album release, and it looks like three tracks aren't even on the Spotify. What's the last track you have on your list? Is it High and Holy?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, me too. But then when I looked up the vinyl release, there must have been three extra tracks just kind of added on to it to make it complete. But it gives me a way to kind of, like I said, digest the album in a way that they're trying to put it out there. So I'll just go with my top three as a whole because these songs are in sequence, and this is not a ranking. This is just the top three from my perspective. It would be the side C for the album, and it starts Exit 9, Something for Junkies, into Motherless. Like those three tracks in itself, like resonated with me the first listen, and second listen just validated it for me. It to me felt like a part of the album that was so personal to him, but also so like real in a sense where there's live instrumentation, there's jazz drums. I mean, there's a lot of smooth vocals that are happening, and he's going through his life experience. Exit
Yeah.
9 talking about just being from where he's from. Something for Junkies was such a like cautionary tale for me to listen and take in. And the end of Something for Junkies talks about how he would hope his mother doesn't die. And then the first tracks in Motherless are something along the lines of My Mama Did, and then he kind of goes into that tale. So it was like
Yeah.
such a beautiful transition between those three tracks that like I think there are other great tracks on this album, of course, but those three in itself, Exit 9 to Something for Junkies to Motherless, I would probably never skip it if I started at
Yeah.
Exit 9. I would probably let those three tracks play all the way through.
No, that's fair for sure. Yeah, I do, and like you said, I mean, there's everything in this album, right? He talks a lot about his life and growing up, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so personal, which I really love. Also, now that I'm looking at this, so the rap album of the year version has four songs after High and Holy. So maybe that's what's on the vinyl. I don't know if it's Yes,
Yeah,
Maynard Vignette, Get Some
yeah,
Money, and then Act Up were added
gotcha.
to the album of the year version, which I'm just now seeing, so I need to go back and listen to those too.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think those tracks are really good. I do like when he slows it down in this album, which he does in a number of tracks. But Exit 9, like, is it's beautiful. I love the production of it a lot.
yeah. I just wrote
Okay,
smooth. I also wrote Wiz vibes. Like it gave me Wiz Khalifa vibes, as far as
yeah,
like from a smooth, just like look at fucking Killer Mike. He can spit fire, but also he can transition from tempo, which just feels
yeah,
so right. It doesn't feel forced at all.
no, not at all. So for me, my first top song was "Shed Tears." Kind of along that same vein, like he talks about the struggle of his early life and his come up. Um, And I love there's a lyric in there at the very end of the first verse where he says, "Ask anybody that know me, I suffered slowly for years, and now I'm like Kobe gripping that trophy closely and I shed tears." And I think that's just a beautiful fucking line and a great reference to Kobe, one of the greatest to ever do it. And then like this song, it's funny they talk about it in the intro, the Apple Music intro, where he refers to like black gospel and that sound. That sound is really prominent. Like the vocals in this song are so,
Powerful.
yeah, they're powerful and they're really beautiful. And I think it's like this song is just great through and through. And I really like that he leans into that gospel sound during it.
Yeah.
Um, Second one, Enrich, which kind of along the same lines of production, like it's a slower beat. It starts with a piano. There's piano throughout it that I really, really like, but it's still heavy in its own way. Like it still kind of picks up a little bit to be heavy. And I just really love the production on it. My favorite lyric is he says, "A in the '80s as babies we sold masters dope, labeled us a nuisance. They used the courts like noose and rope. Us poor black babies, we gave ourselves to slavery. And rich, we made it. We should be celebrated." And I think that right there is like that's a perfect. If I were to like take a snippet of Killer Mike lyrics to show who he is and what he talks about, like I think that's a perfect snippet for it. And talking about black struggle and how he has seen himself be oppressed and people that he knows and loves be oppressed and what they have come to grow into and become, saying we should be celebrated, I think is a powerful statement. And that's why I don't understand how anybody could ever look at that and say it's a conservative lyric, because it's very much not. It's the exact opposite of that. So
Yeah. I mean,
um
like I
so
would
I
challenge
love that
that
song.
thought to say like, yeah, I would say like, to anyone again who thinks that, like find pull something out of here that's conservative, because in reality he is so like this is who we are. We are proud. We are going to rise up, against any oppression that we experience.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then third and last song, Scientists and Engineers. So this song also won. Hang on, let me move this over. So one of the Grammys, he was nominated for Best Rap Album and he won. And then he was nominated for Best Rap Song with Scientists and Engineers and won. And then nominated for Best Rap Performance with Scientists and Engineers and won. And this is just a great collab. It's him, Future, Aaron Allen Kane. I think there may be somebody else on science. Oh yeah, and Andre.
Andre.
Fucking Andre
Mhm.
3000's on it, dude. And
Right.
like
Right.
I think Andre's verse is so quintessential Andre. Like he raps like he always does, but Future and Aaron Allen Kane, like in the, I guess you would call them bridges. Like I don't really consider them verses. I don't really consider it a chorus. Like I guess it's more of a chorus and a bridge, but when Future and Aaron are together, I think that the way that they sound together is great. And Killer Mike is rapping really fucking fast in this song. He has a great flow, and I just enjoy the song a lot. So that's all I had. And then for honorable mention, I had "Don't Let the Devil" because it's Run the Jewels, man. I had to throw a Run the Jewels
Right.
song on there. I fucking love Run the Jewels, so I think it was really nice
I get it. I get it. There,
for
I would
sure.
like to. I'll put a honorable mention out there for talking that shit. That song. There's a switch up halfway through the song, and he has all these Houston references throughout. He's talking Pimp C. He's talking Paul Wall. He's talking. He's calling out all these guys, and halfway through the track, it slows it down into this kind of not full on chopped and screwed vibe, but it definitely has that tempo switch that kind of it works with the track. So it didn't make the top three, but I'll shout out talking that shit.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, what do
Hmm.
you got for bottom songs? The hard
All
part.
right. It is the hard part. And I'm noticing I only wrote two. I must have just lapsed my brain. But I would put scientists and engineers as number three. You know,
What
like
the fuck?
this track, man, when I saw that it had won best rap song prior to listening, I'm like, all right, it's halfway through. I'll know it when we get there. Let's see what happens. But it didn't have an impact on me like a lot of these other tracks did. So I wondered if it was just noted for the collaboration aspect of the track, and I can respect that. But for me, it doesn't hit like the rest of them, right? So I'll throw
That's
that at
fair.
number
I
three.
get.
That's a very last minute put in there. But number two, I have "Don't Let the Devil," only because of that three-track sequence, Exit 9, Something for Junkies, Motherless. You take out Don't Let the Devil and put High and Holy right there. That side I would put up against a lot of sides of music. So it just feels like it could be omitted and it would amplify the rest of the tracks right there. But like I said, it's hard to
Yeah,
pick bottom tracks on this album. But number
yeah,
one, bottom track, and this is because the potential for this track is so fucking huge, but it let me down, I feel. And it's Run, the third track on the album. The intro is so fucking cool. Dave Chappelle giving this really
yeah,
inspirational Normandy Beach speech or just conversation with Killer Mike. And it's so uplifting. It's so necessary. But then I don't feel like the rest of the track supports it. So it's like I feel that there was so much that track could have been based on that intro, and
yeah,
it just didn't hold up to me. So that's the number one bottom track for me. Like I said, it's still good music, but in comparison, I
yeah.
think it had a lot of potential.
Well, you had two of my songs on there, so we were kind of misses there. I'll be
Yeah,
honest, but you
right.
know it happens. I understand the logic behind it for sure, for
Right,
sure.
right.
I also had Run as one of my bottom ones. I agree. Like the Dave Chappelle speech is really cool. I love the production on it. I hated
Right,
Young Thug's verse, and I like Young Thug. Like I'm not somebody that's anti Young Thug. Like I enjoy his music, and there's a lot of his songs that I like, and a lot of his verses. Like I feel like he does a good job featuring, but yeah, it was not there for me, and it sucks me out of the fucking song, which pissed me
right.
off, dude.
Mhm.
And so I just was like, nah, not getting another rinse from me.
Mhm.
Um, Spaceship Views. Spaceship Views is like all over the place to me. It's a song that just feels like super chaotic and kind of like it seems like there was a vision there that he wanted and an idea, and it just didn't come to fruition. Like it didn't come together the way that he wanted it to, which happens. But I will say, Two Chain's verse on Spaceship Views is great. The rest of it, I can't stand. Which is disappointing because like Currency, I really like Currency too, and Currency's
Mhm.
verse just wasn't it for me.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess this one might hurt you a little bit, but talking that shit, I just didn't enjoy it. Like it was. I know he's trying to be boombastic, and I get it with like the name of the title and like what he's trying to do with it, but it the verse is like it just seemed like uncreative to me and uninspired. Like I don't know. He's so good at being hard when he wants to be hard, but this felt like a song where he was intentionally trying to be and it missed the mark for me. Like, we get it, man. You're fucking Killer Mike. Like,
Killer Mike. Yeah,
you can let off the gas for a little bit for this one. So yeah,
I get it.
that was
I
where I
get
was
it.
at for that one.
But it's nice. It's nice to get an album that goes a lot of different directions, but it kind of has this theme, and I think you nailed it on the head with your earlier explanation of like there's this gospel feel to it, and I think that that's something that is rooted in Killer Mike that it can't help but show itself. So he has these detours into, some heavy hitting music, some slower music, and some spaceship views, which is I think it's just kind of like stoner rap. It kind of goes where it
Yeah.
goes, but all in all, I think it does stay around the central theme, which is you know the experiences he's been through with this kind of uplifting sense to it all. Um,
Yeah. No, for
yeah,
sure. And I like the fact that he I like that he talks about so much and gets through so many topics and addresses them really well. And like it's really it's all over the place, but in a good way. Like you get to experience a lot of his mindset and how he thinks and what he's experienced. And I really enjoy that about hip hop music in general. And I feel like, there are a lot of guys that I know that listen to hip hop music that don't enjoy new hip hop music. I think because it lacks themes like this and it lacks, kind of the weight of what hip hop music used to be. And I think that he does a really good job with it in this album. So overall, I think it's really good, and it's a good step in the right direction for hip hop music, I would say.
Yeah.
I
No,
will
I
say
agree.
the Ty Dolla Sign features. So he's on 2 Days. He's also on High and Holy.
Mm.
Um, I didn't like him, man, and I like Ty Dolla Sign too. I don't know what's going on with the features on this album. I think like Killer Mike just did such a good job that it. I don't know. The features were very much lacking for me in this album as a whole. I don't know if you felt that way or
You
if
know,
that's just me being.
it's interesting that you pointed out because like upon first listen, I stay solely focused on Killer Mike's vocals, and like these the features that would come in. It's like yeah, they're there, but they don't they just don't speak to me the way he does, right? But I
Yeah,
was very pleased to see Fabo featured on Something for Junkies. Fabo is from D4L, and that was kind of a throwback for me to see his name, if that's the same guy. I'm assuming it is. But
yeah.
that was a an interesting feature that did catch my eye. But yeah, Ty Dollar Sign. Who else? Go list off some of the features that are on this album for the
So
listeners out
Ty Dolla Sign, Aaron Allen Kane is in a number of songs. She does great. I love her voice. And then there's Currency and 2 Chains. There's Andre and Future. There's Black on Enrich, Young Thug on Run, CeeLo Green on Down by Law. CeeLo Green, actually,
there.
shout
Yeah,
out CeeLo Green. His
I was
feature in
about to
Down by
say
Law is
that was
sick.
sick,
I
and
like that a lot.
that's a great way to open it too, because CeeLo is like that. Also, that bridge between this, he can give it this gospel effect too, and the bass line in that song is dirty.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Mhm.
Um, so let's see. I want to before we move into anything Grammy related. So he got arrested, which we
Yeah,
were
right,
talking about at the Grammys. And so I looked up because nobody knew what the fuck was going on.
right.
And all he said after he got arrested was, as you can imagine, there's a lot going on. There's some confusion around which door my team and I should enter. We experienced an overzealous security guard. My team and I have the utmost confidence that I will ultimately be cleared of all wrongdoing. Until that time, keep listening to Michael and keep going after your dreams. So I guess something happened with a security guard at the Grammys that got Killer Mike arrested, which I think is so funny, knowing like who Killer Mike is. Like he's so fucking anti-police. Like
Dude,
to get
the first
arrested
track,
after
yeah, Down by
after
Law. I
winning
mean,
his Grammys.
it's happening in real time. I think they just influenced the next album. I think
Yeah.
I can't imagine him either not coming out with a single or opening up the next album with they tried to get me at the Grammys or something.
Yeah.
Just I mean, it's coming. Whatever. The dude's infinitely creative, so like he'll do what's right with this experience. But
Yeah.
you can't make this shit up, dude.
No, you really can't. So ratings, Metacritic 77 out of 100. Pitchfork gave it a 6.5 out of 10. And Pitchfork said the Atlanta rapper's first solo record in 11 years preserves his seismic bars, but its sanctimonious undercurrent can make it hard to stomach. I don't know what the fuck that even means. Like I get it. You're trying to use big words in your fucking review, Pitchfork, but you like yet again missing the mark of like music that requires you to
Quality.
think critically. They're like, that's too much for us. Like, we need you to dumb it down a little bit. It's just
Yeah.
never fucking enough. And then Rolling Stone put out a review, and they did not give it a rating, which is strange to me. Like, they wrote about the album, but didn't actually give it a ranking. They did say, I didn't realize this, it's his first solo album in 11 years, which is crazy.
Wow.
He came correct. Also, just to bring this up again, Killer Mike was a very large Bernie Sanders advocate and supporter. He campaigned for him in Georgia. He went to speeches with Bernie. Huge fan of Bernie. So shout out Killer Mike for that, for standing on his ground and supporting politicians that support his beliefs. So shout out to him for that. But with that being said, let's get into rankings. What do you think?
So first listen, I had this at a certain ranking, and I thought on it, and then after listening to it again, it went up point 0.5. So this album is probably going to be the highest rating hip hop album that I give it, and dude, it's a 9 out of 10 for me. I
Holy
was
shit.
so yeah, man.
That is high.
I was so I mean, impressed is not the right word, but I was so satisfied, with the listen and to listen to it again and get more out of it. I get lost. I'm one of those guys that is not attracted to current hip hop music at all because it doesn't give me an opportunity to think things out. It doesn't challenge my listening, right? Because in this sense, I would love, like, this album is one that should come with a lyric book with it, so you can read along as he's basically telling you the story of his experiences, and I think
Yeah.
that right there, something that draws you in that deeply and says, keep digging, keep reading, like, pay attention to what I'm saying, because this is what you're reading, what you're hearing is a product of the art that you're experiencing. Like, everything he went through led him to produce this piece. And yeah, I couldn't, like I said, I was very satisfied with it. And yeah, like, I get why this got, best rap album, but, like, honestly, it was better than the album of the year, in my opinion, which is another uh podcast, um how would you say it, album that you guys did, alum of the podcast. Would you call T Swift an alum of the podcast?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's fair.
So if Midnight's won album of the year and this got best album, I would easily put it above Midnight's, right? But
Yeah,
it's
no,
critical. It's
100%.
critical.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I
Yeah,
will
nine
say,
out of
like,
ten.
that's a high fucking ranking from you. And you know what? Like, Jordan was texting me after our episode and was like, Anthony's great, man. It's great that you have Anthony on. And I was like, yeah, but I know it's going to be like pulling teeth to get him to do hip hop albums that I want to do. And Jordan was like, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
So I'm
right.
glad that we got a hip hop album in and that you enjoyed it. That's even better if you
Yeah,
enjoy
for
it. Like,
sure.
I'm sure the
For
next
sure.
one I pick, you'll be like 4 out of 10. Just give me the beats, you know?
Dude, if you bring out those dollar signs in the track titles, man, my skepticism rises big time.
I will say I listened. So the first time I listened to the album, I did not enjoy it as much as the second time I listened to the album. Much like you, I think like I was when we picked it, I was riding around in the car and I was like, oh, I'll put it on in the car and I'll listen to it because I do like listening to music in the car. Like I have a decent sound system, but it was an album that I felt like I needed to sit down and focus on and listen to and like kind of get the feel for it the first listen and then go back and listen to it with a different ear, knowing what I'm getting into. And like I read through the lyrics on my top songs, like when I was listening to it the second time, and it definitely improved for me. I give it an 8, and the reason I give it an 8 is because of the songs I can leave behind, and because of the features that are on it. Like I think the features at times weigh it down, but it's still, as we've talked about, it's still a phenomenal album, and he's fucking great. He's still doing the damn thing, and we really should like honestly run through. They have 4 Run the Jewel albums, and they're not long. Like we could either do all of them at once or 2 of them at once or something like that, and I would love to do that too because I think the contrast between Run the Jewels and this album are so different. Like he just goes to a different musical place in this album, which I think is cool to see that he's still pushing that artistic ability that he has. But yeah, an 8 for sure. Very, very solid
Great.
album.
Did you ever get a chance to see Run the Jewels perform ever?
So they played at Okeechobee. Um, what was that first year? We've done this before. It was 2016, right?
Years are an illusion to me. Yeah, I had to dig back and see. I mean, 15 maybe?
It was no, it was 16. So
16.
I'm 90% positive. You know how this shit all blurs together. I'm
Yeah, right.
90% positive they were at one of the Okeechobees that we were at or that I was at.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. Like it doesn't, those shows start to blur together. So I can't tell you if I have seen him or not, to be completely honest. But you said you saw him, right?
Yeah, so they opened for one of the nights of Bass Lights, so Bass Nectar and Pretty Lights in Miami, and I just remember because honestly, those shows, openers were an illusion to me as well. You go for the headliners, but seeing that show, it was fucking great. And I also haven't seen many hip hop shows that made me really get get with it.
Yeah.
Um, but it was an amazing performance, right? I mean, Killer Mike's a powerful presence on stage, and LP also. So having those two go made me ask, like, who are these guys? What are they about? And that was a sick show in Miami,
Yeah.
outdoor amphitheater. It was awesome.
So they played Bonnaroo 2015. So I don't know. I can't imagine if it was a hip hop show at Bonnaroo that I missed it, but it would depend on what else was going on
Right.
that year. So because I'm pretty sure 2015 was the Nectar year, the Bass Nectar year. And so if they were both playing late night, obviously you fucking know where I was. So but yeah, I
And I
would love
think
to
they,
see
they
him,
might have opened. Yeah, they might have opened for him on a tour at some point, also.
Oh,
If not
nice.
if not another event or something like that. But
Yeah.
I get it.
Um,
I get it.
well, before we get into rides or dies, I want to talk about the Grammys as a whole. What is your opinion on the Grammys? How do you feel about it? Do you watch the
Dude,
show? Do you care about the award winners? Does it mean anything to you?
fuck no. I mean, here's my opinion on it's just like, I mean, Pitchfork album reviews. It's like take it or leave it, but I leave it. 100% of the time. I find it interesting to see where I guess you would just say mainstream culture is, but just like the Oscars, or like these mainstream award shows to me don't put any they don't make anything better in my opinion. I find it interesting. So when I see Michael winning best rap album of the year, I was like, okay, that's interesting, but that's not going to make me say I love this album. You know,
Yeah,
Listening to the
right.
album, if you would have burned this CD for me and handed it to me and said, dude, just listen to this, I would have the exact same response that I've had. So
Yeah,
no, it doesn't hold any weight to me. Um, I see things happening every year. It's like, I mean, Metallica won Best Metal Performance, right? I mean, it's nothing really is a surprise to me. But if somebody tells me, I trust other people, like people that I know, people that I trust with their taste. I trust their opinions over anything that mainstream media is going to tell me to listen to, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the radio culture. I put on a classic radio station today, heard the exact same songs I've been hearing for the past 32 years, on the radio.
yeah,
So yeah, there's a way I think to digest music, and it's not through a mainstream outlet. I think it's through word of mouth. I think it's through your friends. I think it's through organic discovery. Things will come to you when they come to you, and it's just a matter of you being open enough to take it in, right?
yeah. No, I agree, and I think that art is the same thing with look, I like the Oscars more because I enjoy, I think the Oscars brings to light for me movies that maybe I wasn't going to watch or didn't hear about or didn't see or whatever it is, but I still don't respect the Oscars or the Grammys in terms of who they choose to nominate, who they choose to give awards to, and I think art is not judged by the success of the awards that it's given. I think it's judged by how much it's loved by the people. I think that's the reason that people make music. That's the reason they make films. They do it to have an impact on a certain audience, and the audience speaks for those projects, right? And it's not just in terms of record sales. Like record sales is one way to judge it, but now that's been chopped to shit with streaming services. I think it's what type of conversation does it generate? How much does it mean to these people that were fans of these people that weren't fans of these people? Like art is digested in a way that award shows are never going to understand. And my main beef with the Grammys is and will always be its blatant disrespect and lack of understanding for hip hop music. Honestly, they have treated it as a second class genre since its inception. They don't take it seriously. They don't put any heart into it. They don't care. They clearly have made a statement that they're not going to bring on people that digest this music and consume it, and that speaks volumes about what they think of that genre as a whole. And that mindset, I think, has kept hip hop back years and years and years, to not treat it as a art form that it should be treated as. And the Grammys are just a prime example of that. Not to say that, like, look, did they do it right this year? I think they did, but there have been years where there were hip hop albums that didn't get nominated for best album that should have been, or ones that were nominated that didn't win when I believe they should have been. And granted, I'm biased, but I don't think that they have people that are passionate about that music, and it's an insult to it. So that's kind of my spiel on the fucking Grammys.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
nice to
and
know we're on the same page.
but well, and like my musical taste is not conventional, right? I mean, it's not a traditional music taste where like I listen to, I mean, probably 80% electronic music, and that's not just a subgenre of dubstep. That is like music that is making you get lost in thought. I mean, it's a technical aspect to it. There's so many artists out there that I could just list off that have never been, Boards of Canada, never been likely nominated for a Grammy, right? But that music is
Yeah.
timeless, and it's in its own lane, and that is a whole nother. Like when you just think about music as a whole, there's infinite different directions it can go in, right? But so to try to narrow an art form down like music into, you know, maybe, I mean, there's a shitload of awards that are given out at the Grammys. I was scrolling through the list just to see what artists I recognize, and realize I've been scrolling for 3 minutes going down all the categories. But
Yeah.
it's such a wide art form to say that um, you can limit it in any form or fashion. It's a huge undertaking, so I understand that it's a difficult task to do, but also there's just so much more out there. There's artists that people will never hear that I think are infinitely more talented than, or at least they
Yeah.
are. I would appreciate it a lot more, than
Yeah.
what's being put.
No, 100%. Okay, so let's get into Rides or Dies. You go ahead and intro your track.
You go first. You go first. Let's go
Okay,
with your track.
so I did Black Ice by Subtronics and Rez. Getting a little electronic vibes here. Look, I'm a Rez fan. I love her music. I like her shows. She had a show at Bonnaroo in 2022. That was fucking banging. Like, it was so much fun. And she brings a really nice presence to the stage. I like her music a lot. So I mean, I don't listen to Subtronics. I don't know fucking shit about Subtronics. But this collab was really dope, and I've been listening to it a lot recently. It bangs in my car, so I don't know if it's your type of electronic music. How'd you feel about it?
So this is my notes that I wrote. I put great. It rides until 310 in the track, and this is the house flip that happens at that
Yep.
point. And I was like, well, it just died for me right there, because that build up to me was such a. I think if any artist is thinking about putting a house drop in your track, think about it like this: instead of putting a house drop in your track, do a drum and bass drop into a halftime drop, and know that you will make me come in my pants when you play that, because that is like my favorite. That is my favorite switch up in all of electronic music is a drum and bass into a halftime drop, and that would have made this track perfect in my opinion. But so I have the track rides until 310, then it dies, and then it rides at the end. I like the ending. It's a really beautiful melodic closer to the track, but not a bad track by any means. But you put a
Yeah,
house drop,
that's
it gets
That's I kind of figured that's how you would feel, because it does get housey towards the end, but like, I like the switch up. Like, I like that it kind of slows down there and gets a little housey with it. But we've talked about this before. Like, you either die a bass head or live long enough to see yourself become a house kid. And I guess I'm just in that phase now.
there you
So
go. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I don't get it, but I respect it, I
yeah.
guess.
All right, go ahead and
All
intro
right,
yours. There's a little bit of a background of this one.
yeah, so my ride or die, it's going to come from the film we'll discuss in a little bit. The movie. Oh, let me see. No, this song has been featured on this podcast, I believe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Was this on that album that you did, the Fleetwood Mac album?
Yeah.
So "Landslide" is the track, but it's a cover, and it's done by the it's hard to describe with words, Brittany Snow, but let's just say the special Brittany Snow, amazing in a lot of different aspects. But it's a cover from the film X, and I felt like this song, after watching the movie recently, it really was like such a pivotal point in the film, and such a beautiful, just beautiful song. I mean, it spoke so much. I would be interested to know, because in the film, Kid Cudi is playing guitar, and I would be interested to know if he actually played the guitar on this cover. That would be. I don't know if it's ever out there, but what do you think about this song?
So obviously, like I love Landslide, love Fleetwood Mac. I'm excited to talk about X. But her voice is great and this cover is great. And I loved like the moment in the movie, I was just like appreciating the song. Like I just love the song so much. I was like,
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
nice, like and it is at a really pivotal moment in the movie. And but as a song, we'll talk about the movie later. But as a song, I mean, it's great. It's always great, and I love hearing covers of Fleetwood Mac. So Harry Styles did a Fleetwood Mac cover. Which song was it? I think it was Landslide. Also, no, it was The Chain.
Oh,
Harry
gotcha.
Styles has a version of The Chain, and I think it's fucking phenomenal too. I mean, she's such a gifted writer. They all are. Everybody involved in Fleetwood Mac. That any song that they put out is going to be great. So having somebody that can cover it properly, I think they do a great job. So yeah, I really liked it for sure.
Yeah.
Rides,
Beautiful.
hard rides for me.
Hell yeah.
I don't like. I will say I didn't like halfway through when they put in that house drop and it got real housey. I thought that was kind of weird. But apart
Catch you
from
off
that,
guard, right?
yeah, it took me off guard for sure. All right, so let's talk X. Intro X for everybody that doesn't know X, because you know more about the saga, the director, things of that nature. So what do you got?
So I talked about it in the A24 episode with Jordan and you, about how X and Pearl are part of a trilogy by the director. I'm just gonna say Ty West,
I think it's
Ti.
Ty. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's
who's
Ty.
yeah, and he's done some films in the past, but like this is seems like a whole nother ball game, right? X came out in 2022, so not that long ago, and it is almost, you can equate it to a western slasher kind of film, whereas Pearl, the sequel, is, or actually the prequel, is more like a Technicolor kind of horror film. But it's this wild tale of this group of kids that go to they rent out a barn on these people's property, and they're shooting porn there, and some shit just goes crazy, and it is just such a wild tale. And I'll say this because you haven't seen Pearl, is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so I watched this movie when it came out in theaters in 2022 and was just completely floored in a what the fuck kind of way. And then Pearl came out, I believe, in the same year, and like in the fall of that year, and was so just enthralled by this story. And then 2 nights ago was the first time I rewatched X after having seen Pearl, and it was a whole nother experience. So these films are multifaceted in a way where like you only get to watch it for the first time once. And then as you start to learn more from the additional film from Pearl, it makes the second viewing even more like in depth, because now you have even more background on the characters within the film. So
Yeah.
it was an awesome experience, and I'm really excited to hear your thoughts, and we'll just keep going deeper and deeper into this world he's created.
Yeah, so I will say Ty West is engaged to a woman who's supposed to be my wife, so I'm not really cool with that. He's engaged to Alice in Wonderland. I really thought we would end up together, but whatever. I won't hold it against him when I'm judging his films. I will say X, like, okay, I knew what to expect going into it. I knew it was a slasher like type movie, but I didn't know much outside of that. I knew it was based on them like shooting a porno because I had seen the ad spots for it when it first came out. Knew Cuddy was in it. I will say Cuddy did a really good job, which is unlike him. He's not a great actor, I'll be honest. But I thought he did a really good job in this movie. It's I hate using this term because I feel like people use it when they don't when they want to call a movie boring, which is not what I'm trying to do. It is very much a slow burn. Like it starts like real slow and it kind of takes a while to get in. It's granted there are eerie, creepy like undertones throughout the whole movie, even from the very beginning, like with the couple that lives in the house, the husband like is super creepy. But then when that I'm gonna try not to spoil too much, but when
Sure.
the first killing happens, like it picks up from there, and like you kind of see it coming, but you don't see it coming at the same time, like the fashion in which it happens. So I thought like the transition from it being that slow tension building movie into like the long climax, like it's a long drawn out climax when all this stuff is happening. I thought that was really cool. Like the pacing of the movie was really really cool to me. I will say like even during the climax when everything's happening, there's still moments of where things slow down and you have this gut like feeling, this instinct of like, oh, what the fuck is about to happen, man? You know, like it kind of you're on edge, like, oh, something's about to go down, but I don't know what it is. And there's just a lot of creepy moments. It's really really good for a new horror film, which you know horror films now I think are hit or miss. But everything taking place, it really reminded me of like when you go watch movies like Friday the 13th, like the first Friday the 13th and even the second one, they both take place at camp and like it's all set within that scenery. They don't really leave. It's like the beginning, they're all getting there, they're there, everything takes place there, everything
Mm-hmm.
happens there. And that's the film. And X is the same way, right? It all takes place in essentially two houses that share a property. Like it's a small confined space, but he made it feel bigger. He made it feel more kind of daunting and intimidating with just his camera work, the way that the movie was written. So I had very high praise. I was impressed. Like I didn't go into it with high expectations because I didn't see reviews of it. I didn't look up what it was rated like on Rotten Tomato or IMDb or
It
anything
didn't
like
win an
that.
Oscar, right?
Yeah, it didn't win an Oscar, which apparently means everything to people. So, you know, I didn't know what to think about it, but it was a trip, man. And I'm excited to know that Pearl is a prequel to it. I really want to watch that, and I'm excited for the third movie. And man, let me say, Mia Goth. Mm,
Oh,
mm, mm.
yeah.
Let me tell you
She,
something, Mia Goth. Woo!
yeah,
I
yeah.
can watch Mia Goth all fucking day.
Everything she touches, she is pretty special. So like she has a I won't say who, but she has a dual role in this film. And I mean, you could obviously look it up and find out, but it's so powerful going into the theater, you know, seeing it for the first time. I had no idea that she was playing two roles, and like to know that she's part of the prequel and she's part of the additional third part in the trilogy. It's such a it's just such a special collaboration, I think, between her and this director. And she has tons of, I mean, like I said, honestly, all the movies that I've seen recently with her in, Infinity Pool is one that sticks out big time. She is a scream queen, but it's so her, you know, like
Yeah.
she's very like, she comes off as this very naive character, but like girl can fucking act her ass off.
Yeah.
Like she crushes it. I'm so happy to be able to see the stuff that she puts out, you know, consistently. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it, and I'm surprised now. Did they have X on that list, the A24 list, or was it not on there
Shit, let's
when we
see.
talked about it?
I
Because I don't
Yeah,
think it was.
yeah, I don't think
But
it
let
was
me
either,
look.
because I definitely re-looked it up to see if to make sure that Pearl and X were in fact A24 productions.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
see.
not on there because I just ran through the list. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it belongs on there, dude. Like in turn,
Right?
and they may have like, I don't know. IGN may discredit it because it's like a slasher film, and like they have something like The Witch on there, which in Midsummer, which are very like psychological horror movies. I mean, The Witch sucked, so that's a huge difference there. But I think that I think X belongs somewhere on this list. But
Yeah.
I'm glad that
Well,
you and Jordan pushed me to watch it. You know, I don't think I
yeah.
would have watched it otherwise.
Well, like the first, upon first watch, it definitely did give, you know, slasher vibes. And there's references to, I mean, Friday the 13th with the lake that's there, right? I mean, there's
Yep.
references to The Shining with an axe that's in the film. You know, there's lots of like little nuances. I love that. that Ty West gives. Like, there's something special about films about making films, and I think this is like that. Pearl was like that. It gives you this kind of perspective of a filmmaker making movies about what they're actually doing. I mean, like, there are shots in the film that are from the camera of the character that are part of the movie, and
Yeah.
it changes aspect ratios throughout the movie too, which is such a nice touch, I think.
Yeah.
And the song selection throughout this film, it's so spot on. So this second watch, it actually becomes this psychological horror film based on the knowledge you get from Pearl. So it shifts in that perspective. But watching it with subtitles on, I got to see track names as they were being played. And here's some track
Yeah.
names from this film. Okay, so Should Have Stayed Home. That's early on in the film,
Nice.
right? The Devil Made Me Do It. Um, Act Naturally. There's a song called Headlights in here. Don't Fear the Reaper has a great appearance in this film. There's two.
Yep.
Don't Fear the Reaper and Landslide felt like music videos within the
Yep.
the movie itself. So, like, there's another reference to a different type of film, a short film being a music video, and in the the closing credits is Bad Case of Loving You. So it's like these songs
Yeah,
that
that's
that are so
perfect.
perfect for the moment, and it's just like another tip of the cap from Ty West. And I haven't rewatched Pearl yet. I'm trying to debate on if we either bring it to the podcast or I'll wait till before Maxine comes out and do it again. But I can only imagine
Yeah.
now going back to Pearl for a second watch, just gaining more just overall knowledge of this world that they've created. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, because yeah, this definitely left a lasting impact on me, and even more so the second time too.
I will say one of the best shots in the movie, and I'm a sucker for good shots, man. Like one frame shots or fucking whatever it is. The shot where she's in the lake and the
From above. Mhm.
alligator comes out into the
Above.
water and they pan up and it's just her and the alligator
Tension.
behind her. Like,
Hmm.
oh my god, it's like
Yeah.
it kills you, dude. But it's such a good and it's like a gorgeous shot too. Like the way that he's moving and her and like the stillness of the lake is just, oh, it's so good, so good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
big
agree. I
big
agree.
enjoy it. I think that when Maxine comes out, we should do. I need to watch Pearl, and then when Maxine comes out, we should do both of them. When is Maxine supposed to come out?
This year. I mean, it's finally supposed to come out at some time this year. I don't know if a release date's been pushed. The film has been pushed back from before. It was supposed. I thought it was supposed to be uh, those two in 2022, and then 2023 was going to be Maxine, but I think it just got delayed. But if you
Yeah.
find it, definitely bring it up. But
Where did you
it,
watch? Where did you watch Pearl?
I saw it in the theaters. I haven't.
Okay.
I don't know where it's available right now, but you know me. If there's any film that you need to watch, you just holler, and I will
Yeah.
find a way to get it to you. But Showtime, it might be on Showtime or Hulu. But dude, this one's worth rewatching, and also on a big screen. I mean, this one is that cinematography you were just describing in the scene from the lake, it gets amplified even more so. Like I said, Pearl is like a technicolor kind of uh it has this Wizard of Oz time, right? So if you thought, like, I think this one was set in the late 70s, maybe like
70s. Yeah.
78.
Yeah.
78 was the time period for this one. This one's like the 50s, right? Because
Interesting.
that's when Pearl was young. So you got the 50s
Yeah.
there, the late 70s, and then you have the likely the 80s happening with Maxine, that is the follow up. So it's
Yeah.
like I said, I geek out so hard when I start to see directors planting seeds, and to see all these things that were in front of my eyes the first watch have so much more meaning the second watch. I was like, oh my god, I can't wait for Maxine. So it was like such a fun experience. So I'm glad that you watching it made me want to rewatch it, and damn, I was so stoked that I did.
Nice. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, you got any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say to the people before we sign off?
I mean, take the Grammys for whatever you think they are. and go find some music on your own. You know, go ask your homies what their favorite music was for the past year, and let them turn you on to some stuff. They won't let you down. But no, other
Yeah.
than that, man, I was really stoked. Good album, good movie. Let's. I'm excited for the next round.
Oh, I wanted to mention real quick. I know we're kind of running up on an hour. So I also rewatched. I wanted to bring this up to you. I rewatched Peter Jackson's King Kong recently. So that came out in 2005. I don't know when the last time you watched that movie was, or if you've ever watched it. You should rewatch that fucking movie because I rewatched it and was like, and I was a kid when it came out. That movie, Peter Jackson does a great fucking job directing that movie. Like, I just have to say, upon rewatch, I had to mention this because you and I talk a lot about how like a scene is set and a tone of a movie, and I think like this movie's divided up into thirds. A third of them going to the island, a third of them being on the island, and a third of them being back in New York because it's like the OG King Kong story. And the when they're on Skull Island, like he does such a phenomenal job of creating this environment of Skull Island that is like genuinely horrifying. Like at times it feels like a horror film. Like there's just creepy shit and it's just unnerving. And I think like the CGI is really good for the year, but that part of the movie really stuck out to me as like something that he just fucking nailed. And obviously like the story as a whole, it's 3 hours and 7 minutes, so it's long as fuck.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he does a really good job of this. So I know like, more of a big budget mainstream film, but like I compared to what we've seen now, like I need to go see Godzilla minus one. But
That's what I was going to mention.
in terms of a monster movie, like man, this movie's really fucking good. I've slept on it for way too long.
Yeah, I think I watched it when I was younger, you know, probably like when it came out, but it doesn't, you know, my mind at that point wasn't really taking in movies the way I am now. And
Right.
speaking on like what you're talking about as far as setting a scene or creating a vibe for a film, I did see Godzilla minus one, minus color in the theaters. And that was a really interesting experience. I had never seen the color version, but one thing I did read prior to going in was that seeing it in black and white felt like it felt like a period piece. You know, it felt like
Right.
you were almost watching a documentary of what had happened back then. And that really was I think that was I mean, it was a great experience. You know, I don't think it was like the most amazing film I had seen or will see this year. But I think for what it is, you know, a Godzilla film, it really resonated with me. And I had not had Godzilla or a Kong film really resonate with me before, but this one, yeah, I really enjoyed the experience that was out there in black and white.
Nice. Yeah, I need to
Yeah,
watch it. I still haven't seen it, so I'm gonna have to catch it when it comes to streaming. But I love all those
yeah,
movies, man. I love monster movies. I love CGI, and when it's done with like a nice plot, like something that's compelling, it definitely makes for a more enjoyable experience. So,
yeah,
other than that, yeah,
definitely.
my final statements: fuck the Grammys, and we will see you next week. Hope
You
you
wanna
guys enjoyed.
you wanna tease the album for next week? Let
Go,
them
you
know
go
what we're
ahead and
gonna listen to. All
yeah,
right,
you
so
tease it.
yeah, and then so next week we're gonna do Temple of the Dog. Name of the album, name of the artist. So get your listens on with that, and then the film. What you want to watch? What film do you want to talk
Oh
about next week?
fuck. I don't know. Let me think. You guys are gonna have to wait
Okay.
on the film.
All right.
Sorry.
Cliffhanger on the film.
Yeah, cliffhanger on the
Let me know
film.
soon so we can watch that thing.
All right, sounds good. Thank you,
All right,
Anthony.
man.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys later.
Peace.